All right, I want to welcome everyone to our live Saturday morning presentation. We're going to be spending today looking at the importance of nitric oxide. I've done a couple things for today. I've taken some videos that I've produced and I've edited them, and I'll show this in a little bit. But before I get started, I just want to really help people understand that nitric oxide is critically important to all aspects of your health. So often for us as a group, we look at nitric oxide in relationship to the cardiovascular system, and your cardiovascular system could not function properly without nitric oxide. It's that critical. In fact, when the 1998 Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to 3 American researchers for the discovery of how the amino acid L-arginine is converted into nitric oxide, there became an explosion of research in this area. And there's now well over 150,000 peer-reviewed clinical studies in the area of nitric oxide. And not only does nitric oxide benefit the vascular system, but it also, as they discovered nitric oxide and began to look at how nitric oxide is used within the body, they discovered that nitric oxide is critical for nerve conduction. So it's critically important for the nervous system. Nitric oxide is used by the immune system. So the immune system helps to use nitric oxide as a way to attack viruses and bacteria through a large amount of nitric oxide to be able to go and be able to attack things that don't belong in your body. So there's this balance that your body has in how it uses nitric oxide throughout the whole body, from your brain down to your toes. Nitric oxide is critically important for making sure that everything in your body functions properly. And because of that, nitric oxide got the label called the miracle molecule. And it really lives up to this aspect. You could not live without nitric oxide. It is that critically important to all aspects of your health. And so one of the things that we want to do today is we want to look at the importance of nitric oxide. And I've got a couple things that I've pulled up here. First off, this is an infographic that we all have available to us. And it talks about how our nitric oxide production decreases as we age. Now, one of the things that I'm in the process of investigating, because I have a granddaughter that has a genetic disorder, and that genetic disorder affects her cognitive function, I've begun to do some research with regards to L-arginine and cognitive function or brain disorders. And I'm not prepared yet to talk in depth and detail about this, but I have come across some excellent articles with regards to, and these are scientific articles, with regards to how L-arginine, as it's converted into nitric oxide, helps with all aspects of brain function, and especially with regards to Alzheimer's disease and cognitive impairment and a bunch of different things. I'll most likely share some of this information with you at the end of the month or beginning of next month with regards to what I come across in this, because it's a new area that I'm not familiar with, but there's a lot of interesting information with regards to how important L-arginine and its conversion to nitric oxide is in brain health and cognitive function. But and the reason why I bring this up is, as you can see from this infographic, that as we age, our ability to produce nitric oxide decreases. So you can see from this infographic that when we're in our 20s, we most likely, for most people, they have 100% production of nitric oxide. And it doesn't become an issue with regards to health issues. But when you get into your 30s, you can see that your nitric oxide production is decreased by 20%. When you get into your 40s, your nitric oxide has decreased by almost 50%. And when you get into your 50s, your nitric oxide has decreased by 65%. And when you're in your 60s, like I am, if I didn't do things to harness the power of nitric oxide within my body by taking the right ingredients within my system to be able to convert those ingredients or maximize the ability to convert those ingredients into nitric oxide, I would be typical to this infographic where I would have lost 85% of my ability to produce nitric oxide. Well, if nitric oxide is important for vascular health, then you can see that as it decreases, it's going to help to accelerate vascular issues. Or if nitric oxide, in the research that I'm looking at with regards to Alzheimer's disease doesn't just show up one day. Alzheimer's disease is a progressive disease that is occurring over time, and then you don't begin to see the effects of it until maybe 20 or 30 years later, where people begin to have cognitive declines. Well, maybe part of those cognitive declines are the fact that their bodies are no longer able to produce nitric oxide at the same levels at what they used to do when they were younger. So what can we do to be able to help our bodies properly produce nitric oxide and do it no matter what our age is? Now, as I said, I'm in my 60s, and there's no way that I'm ever going to get back to my 20s with regards to my nitric oxide production. But if I can be able to get back into my early 40s in terms of my nitric oxide production, or maybe my late 30s, then what is that going to do? It's going to improve my vascular health. It's going to improve all the aspects that go along with vascular health. My background's exercise physiology, so I know that anything that you can do to improve blood flow in the body improves the ability of those organ systems to function better. I can deliver more oxygen, which means that I can work at what we call a higher aerobic capacity. When I work aerobically, I produce less waste products through that process, and I can deliver more nutrients. Plus, if I have improved circulation, I can remove waste products properly so they can go to the right organs where they belong to be able to be disposed of throughout my body. So this whole aspect of improving blood flow, from my experience in exercise physiology, improves all organ systems. And everything that I've ever seen with regards to cognitive function, anything that improves blood flow to the brain typically improves cognitive function. And what is the bottom line in nitric oxide? The bottom line in nitric oxide, when properly harnessed in the vascular system, is to improve blood flow. So one of the things that I did is I have a presentation that I want to show you. I've done some editing. These are a couple videos that I have up. I've done editing, and what I want you to understand is there's two primary pathways for the creation of nitric oxide. This video will help you understand those two primary pathways. There are three major benefits that come to us from nitric oxide in the vascular system, and then there are 6 key ingredients that are necessary to help us optimize nitric oxide. So rather than doing this as a PowerPoint presentation, I'd rather do it through this video, and everyone should be able to hear the sound as well as be able to see everything. So here we go. In your cardiovascular system, there are 2 primary pathways for the creation of nitric oxide. They are the nitrite pathway and the endothelial pathway. This video will examine each so that you can better understand how to harness the benefits of nitric oxide for improved cardiovascular health. Both of these pathways are valid for the creation of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that is used by your vascular system to improve blood flow. This molecule has 3 primary benefits. First is vasodilation, which relaxes the smooth muscles of the blood vessels so that they expand. This improves the delivery of oxygen and nutrients, as well as aids in the removal of cellular waste. And it can be a natural way to lower blood pressure back into the normal range. Additionally, men cannot have an erection without nitric oxide, so sexual health is also dependent on your nitric oxide levels. Second, nitric oxide keeps blood platelet cells from sticking together, which naturally reduces your risk for strokes and heart attacks. Third, nitric oxide helps to initiate repair mechanisms to keep the lining of your vascular system, what is called the endothelium, healthy and functioning. Now let me give you an overview of each pathway. Then at the end, I'll give you my opinion on which pathway can benefit you the most. Let's start with the nitrate-nitrite pathway. In your mouth are enzymes that convert nitrates to nitrites, which can then be converted to nitric oxide in your bloodstream. This pathway is dependent upon several key items. First, you must consume foods that contain nitrates. Green leafy vegetables and root plants such as beetroot are your best sources. Second, the enzymes that convert nitrate to nitrite are from bacteria in your saliva. Without these bacteria, you cannot access this pathway for the creation of nitric oxide. Most mouthwashes kill this bacteria. This means that if you use a daily mouthwash, then you severely limit your production of nitric oxide through this pathway. Third, your stomach acids are also important in the chain of events needed to convert nitrites to nitric oxide. As we age, our stomach acids decrease. Or if you use antacids to neutralize your stomach acidity, then you decrease your ability to create nitric oxide through the nitrate-nitrite pathway. This is also a short-lived pathway, meaning once the nitrate has been converted to nitrite, the nitrites are then used up in the creation of nitric oxide. And while there are other metabolic pathways in your body that can produce nitric oxide from reformed nitrites, they require special conditions to be effective. Because of this, the nitrate-nitrite pathway has limitations on long-term therapeutic increases in nitric oxide. Supplements that use beetroot as their primary source for the creation of nitric oxide will typically include the amino acid L-citrulline to help extend their product's production of nitric oxide. L-citrulline does not use the nitrate-nitrite pathway. Instead, it uses the endothelial pathway for the creation of nitric oxide. The endothelium is a one-celled lining of your entire cardiovascular system. This tissue regulates most of your cardiovascular health. Contained in this endothelium are enzymes called eNOS, which convert the amino acid L-arginine into nitric oxide. Here is an image to help you understand this metabolic process. A couple of items to note. First, it is L-arginine that is converted to nitric oxide. And if all you supply these eNOS enzymes with is L-arginine, then it is a short-lived pathway in the creation of nitric oxide. This is where L-citrulline comes in. This amino acid will be converted by your liver into L-arginine to help fuel the eNOS enzymes in their production of nitric oxide. Additionally, as you can see by the image, L-citrulline also reforms L-arginine after the nitric oxide has been produced. This action significantly extends your ability to produce nitric oxide over a much longer period of time. Second, calcium is needed for the proper function of the eNOS enzymes. Without calcium, you would be limited in your production of nitric oxide through the endothelial pathway. Ingredients like vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 help to regulate these calcium levels. This improves the function of the eNOS enzymes for higher production of nitric oxide. Third, there are other nutrients that can also boost the production of nitric oxide via the endothelial pathway. Key ingredients like pomegranate fruit concentrate, red grape polyphenol extract, vitamin C, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12 can also help improve the creation of nitric oxide. Because of this, I believe the best way to improve nitric oxide levels in your body is to properly harness the power of the endothelial pathway. This pathway has the greatest surface volume for the creation of nitric oxide. Plus, there are multiple ways to improve the function of this pathway for the creation of nitric oxide. There are 6 ingredients that help you optimize nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is key to your vascular health as it helps you enjoy the following benefits: improve blood flow, reduce your risk for strokes and heart attacks, helps keep your vascular system healthy. All of these benefits are important, which means learning how to optimize nitric oxide production also helps you address the following cardiovascular concerns: high blood pressure, diabetic complications, sexual health issues for both men and women, especially ED issues for men, poor wound healing, cognitive function, kidney function, and even improved athletic performance. Nitric oxide is a natural way to address most cardiovascular health concerns. So it's important to understand which ingredients optimize nitric oxide production. They are L-arginine, L-citrulline, red grape polyphenol extract, vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and pomegranate fruit concentrate. L-arginine is always the first and most important ingredient. The 1998 Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to 3 American researchers for discovering how the lining of your vascular system converts the amino acid L-arginine into nitric oxide, the master signaling molecule of your entire cardiovascular system. And while L-arginine can be found in the food you eat, the easiest method to make sure you're consuming enough of this amino acid is to use a daily nutritional supplement that contains pure, free-form L-arginine that's also pharmaceutical grade. Unfortunately, the use of L-arginine by itself is not enough. The conversion of L-arginine to nitric oxide only provides a 2-hour window of improved nitric oxide production. Then within 4 to 6 hours, most people are back to their baseline levels. This results in a temporary increase in blood flow, but not long-lasting benefits. To optimize your production of nitric oxide, you must combine the L-arginine with L-citrulline. This amino acid is metabolized to yield more L-arginine, which enhances your ability to produce higher amounts of nitric oxide over a much longer period of time. As you can see by the red circle, L-citrulline is key to long-term production of nitric oxide. The next key ingredient is red grape polyphenol extract. This ingredient helps to prevent LDL oxidation, which typically causes vascular inflammation, leading to plaque formation and damage to the lining of your vascular system. Vascular inflammation is the root cause of most cardiovascular concerns. Vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 work together to regulate calcium levels in your bloodstream. Calcium is a key ingredient because the enzymatic production of nitric oxide is a calcium-dependent reaction. Additionally, by itself, vitamin D3 supports healthy cardiovascular function and inflammatory response. And increasing the vitamin D levels in your bloodstream can have a profound benefit in helping to prevent diabetic complications. Now let's look at vitamin K. You need to know that the form of vitamin K is critical. Many companies use vitamin K1 because it's significantly cheaper to use. The problem is vitamin K1 does not support vascular health and may actually interfere with blood thinning medications. Vitamin K2 is just the opposite. This correct form significantly improves arterial and cardiovascular health. It also plays an important role in preventing calcification of the arteries as well as soft tissues like your heart, lungs, and kidneys. Finally, we have pomegranate fruit concentrate. This ingredient enhances the enzymatic activity of your vascular system, leading to higher production of nitric oxide. In peer-reviewed clinical studies, pomegranate fruit concentrate has been shown to reverse plaque formations within the vascular system because of its ability to increase nitric oxide production. As you can see, these 6 ingredients are key to optimizing the production of nitric oxide. If you decide to use a nutritional supplement to help you increase your production of nitric oxide, then check the product ingredient list to make sure that these 6 ingredients are contained in the product. Thanks for watching, and please share this video with others. Together, we can make a major difference in the health of our family and friends. All right, so a couple things I want to expand on before I open this up to your questions, because I want to come back to this infographic and touch on a couple things. And the reason why I believe the endothelial pathway is a better pathway for the creation of nitric oxide for your body to be able to enjoy all the benefits that can come from nitric oxide. And the first reason is the sheer amount of surface volume that's involved in the endothelium. Now, I don't have this information up here in front of you, but there's on average, about 60,000 miles of vascularity within your body. That would include your arteries and arterioles, your veins, your venules, and then all the capillaries. So all of your vascular system is lined by what we call the endothelium, this one-cell tissue. Your capillaries are just extensions of the endothelium. And when you take all that out as a surface volume and you lay it flat out as a flat surface, it would have the approximate coverage of a football field. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to think that within your body, you have something like the endothelium that has a total surface volume of the size of a football field inside your body. That's how huge this tissue is. Some people consider it an organ, some people consider it a tissue. Irregardless of whether you consider it an organ or a tissue, the surface volume is absolutely huge. And so anything that we can do to harness that helps us to then increase the nitric oxide. Now, within that endothelium are these enzymes called eNOS, E for endothelium. Those enzymes are what the endothelium uses to convert the L-arginine into nitric oxide. In the video that you just saw, I made comment about calcium. This is a calcium-dependent reaction. When I first started today, I talked to you that there's now over 150,000 peer-reviewed clinical research studies in the area of nitric oxide. Those research studies are all across the board in terms of benefits. Some studies show no benefit. Some studies show extreme benefits. Some studies show actual, maybe potential problems with L-arginine. Everything has to do with study design. And the reason why I bring this up is if I have a healthy endothelium and my eNOS enzymes are healthy, and I am I'm in a study and I'm given L-arginine, but I lack calcium in my bloodstream, then I could be in that study and I could have a good source of L-arginine, but I would get very little conversion of the L-arginine into nitric oxide because the eNOS enzymes don't function properly because the calcium component is missing. And my point is that your body doesn't work off of one single ingredient. Your body works best with multiple ingredients synergistically working together to be able to have you have the best outcome possible in that design. And so L-arginine is critically important for the creation of nitric oxide, but if I don't have calcium, and how is calcium there? Well, calcium is regulated by vitamin D3 and vitamin K2. I need those two components to properly regulate calcium levels in my bloodstream so that the eNOS enzymes can function optimally in this conversion of L-arginine to nitric oxide. Now, also in that video, I talked about two primary pathways for the creation of nitric oxide. Both pathways are valid pathways for the creation of nitric oxide. Both pathways are limited if you're only dealing with single ingredients. So if you're doing the nitrate nitrite pathway, the typical single ingredient that is used is beetroot because it contains the largest amount of nitrates per volume. And then your body would convert those nitrates to nitrites that are then converted into nitric oxide. By itself, if the bacteria in your mouth is correct and your stomach acids are good, then you're going to get a good conversion to nitric oxide, but it is limited in time. The same thing with L-arginine. If all I'm doing is consuming L-arginine and I have proper calcium levels in my bloodstream, then I'm going to get a good conversion of L-arginine to nitric oxide, but it's going to be limited in time. Both pathways, if all you're doing is single ingredients, both pathways are valid, but both pathways are limited. This is why it's important to have other ingredients. Now, in the nitrate nitrite pathway, there really are no other ingredients that can enhance the ability to create nitric oxide over a longer period of time. You have to keep consuming nitrates. Those nitrates then have to be converted to nitrites, which then convert to nitric oxide. It's an efficient process to begin with, but it's a very inefficient process to continue. And there's no additional ingredients that can harness the ability of that pathway to accelerate and expand over time its ability to create nitric oxide. That is why you will see those supplements that use the nitrate nitrite pathway, like Circo-2, Neo40, they use the beetroot pathway. But if you look at their ingredient list, they include the L-citrulline because they understand the limitations that that pathway nitrate has in long-term production of nitric oxide. So sometimes, and they're not as bad as what they used to be, but they try and make it seem like if you go to harness the endothelial pathway, especially if you're over the age of 40, you're not going to get very good results. Now, there is some truth to what they say because as you can see by this infographic that as I age, what happens is I get more and more plaque formation. How is that plaque formation occurring? It's because of damage done to the wall of the endothelium through oxidative stress. Typically, oxidation of low-density lipoprotein, the bad cholesterol, causes inflammation of the lining of your vascular system, allowing plaque formation to begin to occur. And again, if you're not doing anything to limit that inflammation, especially of bad cholesterol, the oxidation of bad cholesterol, that plaque continues to grow over time. So the endothelium becomes less and less functional. But that does not mean that you can't reverse that process. By giving the endothelium the right ingredients that it needs to begin the process of optimizing nitric oxide production. What is the third benefit of improved nitric oxide? The third benefit of improved nitric oxide is to initiate reparative mechanisms to heal damage done to the endothelium to bring more of your endothelium surface volume back into play. And again, if I've got a football field of endothelium in my body, and I can begin to give that football field the right ingredients for those eNOS enzymes to increase its production of nitric oxide, then I can begin to initiate reparative mechanisms to bring more of that surface volume back into play. Well, again, what does Circo-2 and Neo40 do? They include L-citrulline in their product. L-citrulline is converted by the liver into L-arginine, and then it goes down that same pathway that they tell people is dysfunctional. It's a little bit disingenuous on their part, but they understand the importance of L-arginine in this process. They just don't put L-arginine into their product because then that would be counter to what they're trying to tell people. So they use L-citrulline in their product, and the body then converts through the liver L-citrulline into L-arginine so that it can then go down the endothelial pathway for the creation of nitric oxide, which then extends their product's ability to create nitric oxide. Well, again, why not give the endothelium all the ingredients that it needs so it can synergistically optimize this ability to create nitric oxide? And that's why those 6 ingredients that we talked about, or at least I talked about in the video, are so critically important to help you to take the endothelial pathway and take L-arginine, but don't limit just to L-arginine, but include 5 other ingredients that would expand the ability of the endothelial pathway to create nitric oxide over an extended period of time, which then becomes more therapeutically beneficial in helping to improve blood flow, reduce the risk for strokes and heart attacks, and initiate reparative mechanisms to heal damage done to the endothelium. That's why I believe the endothelial pathway is a much better pathway to harness for the production of nitric oxide. If you're using these 6 ingredients, you can get better results and you can improve the vascular health of the person. Now, as I also shared at the beginning of our presentation, improving vascular health addresses a whole boatload of different cardiovascular health issues, and improved blood flow to any organ system improves the function of that organ system. If I can improve the function of the organ system, say the kidneys, for example, well, if I can improve blood flow to the kidneys as a tissue, I improve the health of the kidneys. What are your kidneys? They're just a mass of capillaries. If I improve the endothelial function, I then improve capillary function. So if I improve blood flow to the kidneys, I nourish the kidneys with oxygen and nutrients, properly remove waste products so the environment that the kidneys sit in and live in improves. And then if I'm initiating reparative mechanisms to heal damage to the endothelium, I'm then improving capillary function. If I improve capillary function, I'll improve capillary function within the kidneys. Then the kidneys' purpose improves. The ability to filter blood improves because capillary function is improved. So the whole function of the kidneys improves. That's why in the video, one of the benefits is improved kidney function. Wound healing. Couldn't have wound healing without nitric oxide and L-arginine. They are critically important, as well as the endothelium. The endothelium, L-arginine, nitric oxide are all critically important to the wound healing process. If you have a diabetic, what is a diabetic's problem? The problem is, as blood sugar causes direct damage to this lining of the vascular system, you get inflammation. Inflammation then causes problems to the endothelium. That damage accumulates over time. Most diabetic complications are a result of cumulative damage to the endothelium over time. One of those problems is wound healing. Again, if I'm helping that person improve their ability by bringing in the right ingredients to harness the endothelial pathway to maximize its ability to create nitric oxide for the level that it's currently at, and then be able to initiate reparative mechanisms, as well as provide in the wound healing process improved function of the endothelium, improved ability to create nitric oxide, and the use of L-arginine in the process, I can then help to speed the wound healing process. It would help a diabetic see benefits in skin health, or if they have wounds that aren't healing, typically they would then see through the use of nitric oxide, properly used, properly harnessed in their body, ability to speed the wound healing process. It's just amazing how important this one molecule, so simple, a nitrogen attached to an oxygen, creates a molecule, and that molecule acts in the body as a signaling molecule, causing something else to occur. So it causes all these other things to occur within your body that without nitric oxide couldn't occur, whether it be brain health and brain function, sexual health, whether it be kidney health, whether it be vascular health, whether it be your immune, all these different things are so important to your proper functioning that this one molecule called nitric oxide is so critically important to your overall health. And so with that said, do I have anyone that has any questions on anything that I've shared with you or anything that you saw in the video? Everyone's muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Dan, this is David Munoz.
Yes, David.
Hey, listen, first of all, I enjoyed the presentation. And one thing that really stood out for me is how much we've changed in the presentation of nitric oxide therapy, where you have really brought an education as opposed to talking about a product. Whereas when I first started in this business, it was all about the product and then the education, or the product and the education. But the world has changed, and I realized, our protocols have changed due to whatever. And I just thought it was fantastic. And one of the things I was waiting for you to talk about when it came to nitric oxide, how you were going to address the most prevalent diseases that we have in our generation, which is cardiovascular disease, specifically diabetes, and you just did. So, and what you did was you pointed out specifically the wound healing and how diabetics suffer from wound healing, and how the application proper, and you use the word proper several times, a proper application of nitric oxide should result in a help with the wound healing process for diabetics. And I thought that was excellently put, something that I can remember in terms of when they asked me, well, will it help diabetes? And I can use that terminology to present it. So, that's my only comment, Dan. And thank you. And I know, like I said, the world has changed, and we have to change with it. But I appreciate that. I just wanted to give you that observation. So,
sure, I appreciate that, David. And a couple things I want to just say in response to what you've shared with us is, if you talk about nitric oxide and you talk about L-arginine, there's so much information that you can share with people to help them understand the benefits. Let me go back to this here. So here's the opening thing that I showed when I started presentation today. But underneath this, here are some of the studies that I've been finding. L-arginine and Alzheimer's disease. L-norvaline reverses cognitive decline in synaptic loss. So basically what it talks about is, again, L-arginine and nitric oxide. When you come down here, the role of nitric oxide in brain disorders, autism spectrum disorders, and other psychiatric, neurological, and neurodegenerative disorders. Nitric oxide and mental health. Nitric oxide signaling and antidepressant action revisited. So again, I'm not ready to begin to do a presentation with regards to nitric oxide and cognitive function, but there is a huge amount of information that's out there in the scientific world that once you understand how to bring that information in a way that people can understand versus a scientific article, as long as the information that you're sharing with them is understandable, yet still, is what the scientific studies are saying, then there's a lot of information that you can bring to people on the importance of L-arginine and nitric oxide to deal with issues that they might be suffering from personally or within their family. There are a lot of people, like ourselves that have, my parents are now passed away, but there's a lot of people whose parents are living with cognitive function issues like Alzheimer's disease, or they're worried that they're going to go down the same pathway that their parents went down with cognitive function issues. So if we can help people understand how L-arginine and nitric oxide can begin to help slow that process down or address that process or help to improve something the person's going through, like depression or post-traumatic stress disorder, then we have information that we can help share with them. Then it just becomes a question of what nitric oxide product should I use to help me maximize the benefits. And then that creates the ability for you to share with them our product of choice. And later this month, I'm going to have, I think it's the third Saturday of this month. So 2 Saturdays from now, I'm going to be talking about our product of choice for helping to harness the benefits of nitric oxide. And that then allows you to have a conversation with a person on what are you doing personally to help yourself improve your nitric oxide levels. And then you can share what your health benefits have been. And then it's just up to that person whether that's the product that they want to make for their product of choice, or whether they want to continue to search for another supplement that will help them harness the benefits of nitric oxide.
That's great, Dan. I appreciate that. And I would look forward to seeing that presentation of yours, because I like the way you put it. And of course, if we can, as long as it's within the guidelines, we can emulate that product of choice presentation and still deliver the message we want to deliver. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else with any questions or comments before we say goodbye?
Hello, Dan. It's Donald.
Yes, Donald.
I would like to echo David's sentiments on the presentation. Its graphics are excellent. Content is on point, and we do know that now the doctors are finding out that COVID-19 attacks the nitric oxide in our bodies, and you've done an excellent job in giving us material to help talk about the prevention, or the protection rather, of nitric oxide. And can't wait to delve into the video when you send it on Tuesday. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you, Donald. Yes, I'll have a link to the video I showed today. I'm not planning to put that video up on YouTube, but you will have access to it through the screencast platform that I use.
Excellent.
All right. Anyone else before we say goodbye? All right. I want to thank you for your time today. We're going to go a little bit different track next Saturday. There's a tool in Synergy for helping you to grow your Synergy business that I discovered last month that I think is an excellent tool. It's kind of extensive, but again, there's some really good material within that tool that Synergy has created. And it's so good that I think we need to understand where it's at and then show you its components and help you understand how you can harness that to help you with growing your Synergy business. And we'll talk about that next Saturday. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed weekend. See you next Saturday.